Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Auzubillah shaitan rajim, may God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Firli, my Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina Sirata Mustaqim, may God guide us to the direct path. Okay. What is consciousness meant for? And to context this lecture, you're listening to a Muslim futurist. I am Muslim because I consider there's a system admin beyond the world and outside of this world room, and there's nothing in the world in the simulation can be equivalent to the system admin. That's how I am Muslim. And at the same time, I'm a futurist because when I wonder why am I here on earth, aside from a system admin God judging my deeds, it seems I'm here to consider. Sorry, so, anyways, to continue. Sorry, guys, I just lost my train of thought. Um, Pretty much, it's very obvious. I am looking at human existence. I am experiencing human existence as a biological being. Right now, this biological body is, I consider it as the life form, and I consider what is moving this as life force. Okay. Now, the meaning of life seems to have to do with how I handle my life force and what life actually is, like not actually is, but it's as if there's like, how do I say it? Even though I'm one person, I have multiple strategies to my own being. Okay, one strategy I had to come up with, which is the idea of like, okay, buddy, you're a candle. Like I'm talking about myself. I just consider for myself, all right, I'm like a candle, and a candle, the candle wax will melt one day. So what was the purpose of the light of the candle, right? So from one angle, I've realized that this biological body is here for certain tasks, and then at some point we leave this body. Okay, so my intelligence considers a strategy to the physical outcome, to my in front of my eyes, my outer realms. There's a strategy to that. Okay, now, so I'm saying there's a strategy for the body. Now, because I'm a bit old school, I like when I was being raised, you asked the person, hey man, what does humanity mean? Okay, like I'm saying that they would say the human is a combination of soul, like an equation, human equal sign, soul plus mind plus body. This is traditional, okay? Before the whole, you know, analytical philosophy takeover, that was the nature of reality. Okay, people saw it that way. Now, why did they see it that way? That's the question. Because they saw dimensions to one being, right? So they saw that, all right, there's a body to this being. Okay, they're like, okay, this is the body. Then they're like, wait a minute, we can remember things, we can visualize things, and it seems like we can even consider ourselves as a character in a story. So that's the mind. Okay, so it's like there's the body's life, like physically what you eat, but then there's your mind's life. And if you wonder about what the mind is doing, at least this is probably like how biologists are explaining it. But pretty much the brain is creating a subjective model that is being overlaid upon reality. Okay, now for this lecture I have prepared something for you to read for you, but I'm gonna just talk about it for a little bit now. See, the human consciousness, it's like based on what you have access to. I have access to a biological physical body. I need to find a strategy for that, short term and long term, for all my survival needs. Let's say, for example, I need to figure out what to eat, and I need to also figure out what kind of what to how to update civilization before I die. You know, update the system I was born in before I die. Right. So I'm saying there's a short term strategy, long term strategy to my physical self. Now, when it comes to what else do I can I move in the moment, so you can move your physical body, but you can also close your eyes. And if I tell you, imagine like, you know, a flickering candle flame, or imagine like, like an apple hovering in the air, moving clockwise, like, spinning clockwise, and also hovering in the air, like making this circle in there. Like your mind can do that. Your mind, your eyes are closed, your body is here, but your mind can still move and live a life. And you have been from the beginning of your life. It's like, the first thing we need to do about civilization is to get honest. And when we get honest, we realize that in actuality, no one has been honest, because 100% honesty is impossible, you know, because, and I'm not saying like 100% honesty is impossible. I'm saying it's like I'm talking about the nature of man's intelligence having access to a private and public server. Okay, so it's kind of like treating your body, not just your body, like treating, if like, I'll say it this way. The spiritual community tells you to like treat yourself as energy. It's like right now I'm telling you, treat your body like a system, like some tech, and treat it like a technology. And it's a technology, not only you and everyone else in existence is for the first time familiarizing themselves with your DNA, with your existence, right? Now, I think that what I'm trying to say is that we are alive behind our eyes in an awareness that is aware of so much more than our body and what our body can communicate. Okay. So we need a strategy for the body, we need a strategy for the mind, we need a strategy for the soul, then we have found a strategy for the human. Okay, this is the traditional approach. Now, to follow the traditional approach, let's just try it. right? So the strategy for the body is like, okay, be as healthy as long as possible, and also, you know, um, use your existence to contribute to something. That's the strategy of the body. Okay, what do you do with the body? It's like procreate, advance civilization, build stuff, you know, and like something. Use your body, right? But for ethical reasons, keep that in mind. Ethics is key. Keep your heart pure. That's the strategy. That's the long term game. The wise are playing pretty much. So the strategy for the body, let's say, is health. Now the strategy for the mind is a bit different, and the situation is actually different. Why? Because the mind is not like the body. The mind can be even simplified to that which generates meaning. So what does that mean? That means it's like your mind is a different aspect of this technology you are, that you need to familiarize yourself, and the fears of the body and the fears of the mind are different. Okay, it's kind of like saying your body is the concept. Okay, it's making the concept visible, body consciousness. Now what is mind consciousness, to make it seem cooler than it, to make it seem cool for the younger generation of old souls. I don't know what to say. For the older generation of young souls or younger generation of old souls, end up being the same thing, you know? They're like, no way, your soul has time? Your soul wears a watch? No way. What kind of watch does it wear? Plato politely asks the time traveler to get out of here. Anyways, guys, where I'm going with this is that the strategy for the body is very different than the strategy for the mind. The mind is a different question, meaning that you need to, like, at least for me, it's a different context than my body. My body is like, oh my god, the humanity, these cells that compose me are all gonna die if I die. I gotta live for them because they've been living for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have this relationship with my body. Okay, to be honest, I have it in a sense like I've apologized to my biological body. I have commanded my biological body, you know. I've prayed to God to, protect my biological body. I've my relationship with my biological body is its own universe, to be honest. Right? And you'll be like, what's having a relationship with the body? I'll be like, the awareness that underlies everything, the awareness that's the edge of your mind that you actually are, but you can't identify with because the content of identity is in it. You know. But anyways, where I'm going with it is the strategy for the mind is different. Now, what is how like I'm trying to explain this to you as if like, yo guys, I've played around with this technology. Let me give you some insights. That's like the hilarious attitude approach. I have a sort of kind of like silly school cosmic scholar. It's like this man's a cosmic silly goose. You know what I mean? But the whole point of it is that awareness surpasses linearity and non-linearity. There's a reason for this, okay? And like what I say, dislike what I say. Human perception is the way it is. All right, guys. So where I'm going with this is this: that the strategy for the mind has a different consideration of how the intelligence is starting. Okay, so the mind. is that which gives meaning. Let's just look at that sentence, okay? Your mind gives meaning. Now, I think for most people this would be true. I said your mind gives meaning. The viewers went from 4 to 1. It's just like the funniest thing I've ever heard. I've seen in my life. Okay. So, anyways, guys, the meaning to life, you consider that is something that the mind is doing. Okay, and the mind is the brain's like abstract activity. Okay, it's like yo, scientists, the brain's doing some abstract stuff. Do we treat this as normal? Do we treat this as physical? Isn't it weird that our brains are non-physically inspired to be physical? Like we got to consider these, you know. Anyways, guys, where where am I going with this? I keep saying that, but ultimately I'm trying to tell you the mind is what's giving meaning, and the strategy I have for my mind is like the purpose based on the greatest awareness. So it's pretty much basic, like to some degree common sense protocol. You've opened your eyes in a world, you try to get them like as far accurate as you can in understanding this place, and then you have an expanded zone of awareness, and based on your awareness you can notice what's important in a system. Okay, so the relationship I have with my mind, I'm like, okay, God, okay, system admin, okay, my consciousness, my eyes have opened to the world. Do you know my job is to engage and interact and, let's say, translate what I find, but it's the job of the system admin and just the design of the system to be a design, to have its structure and its mode, right? That means if everything was changing all the time, we could never reference anything to anything else. So there is a delay in how reality is changing subjectively and objectively that is making them both even be visible at all, distinguishable at all. Okay, so the reality of the nature of the mind is that your mind is actually how your awareness it's like your attention. Okay, it's like where your attention goes, your mind is there. This is why when somebody, let's say, looks at something nasty or evil or something or effed up, right, they're like, your mind's in the gutter. What do they mean? That your attention's on something that is, there's so many better things your attention to be on. Do you know what I mean? Right now, the question of the mind, pretty much, I think I see it in a kind of cool way, where I say, okay, it's like every human mind is like, yo, what's the most important thing I can do here? Okay, so I think that the body is like, what's the best way I can be here, which is health. But the mind is like, what's the best thing I can do here? And that's starting from how the mind is valuing itself as a subjective self, as an idea. So you might not believe it, but you're actually this awareness. But this awareness, when it becomes aware of subjective form, it can identify with it. So you're kind of like this force field that within it there's objects and subjects moving, and you can identify with these subjects and objects by how your attention remains on it. Pretty much what I'm saying is, the soul, the strategy to the soul is coming into terms, attaining a contentment, how the whole moment is actually the presence of awareness. The instantaneous presence of awareness is simultaneously being rendered as a conscious reality of form. For me, the reason I'm saying treat yourself like a technology, because then the question comes, what is the most advanced expression of this technology? So pretty much the same thing goes, the strategy for the body. What is the most advanced usage of the body in a lifetime? And then we think of what is the most advanced usage of the mind, the intelligence of the being through the lifetime. And then we think about what's the most advanced utility of just being aware that you're aware, which has to do with the soul. See, the soul, the strategy for the soul is not done by the free will, because the free will, at least because I'm Muslim, in the source code, it says that it is the will of Allah, it's the command of Allah, the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the soul is not something that a person can say they are. It's like the moon saying that its light is its own. Like free will is like the moon trying to claim its light not being the sun's light. In the same way, your soul is the command of the systematic. I don't know how to say it. Your mind is acting free. Your body knows it is not free. And the soul is watching the subjects and objects change from the beginning. For me, if somebody says Mr. Within or whatever, they're like, yo, man, how do you use your mind? I will say the first thing is that I was so neutral and so opinionless that you don't understand. Deep down, I think when I was younger, I honestly felt devoid of personality. Because it, to me, it just appeared as how you animate. Okay. For me, the way I use my mind is by basically responding to a fundamental question I think my soul is asking itself, which is what is important while you're here. That means we tend to think life, the point of it is the noun version of us, not even a verb. Some people are like, yo man, I want to become this in the future. I want to become this picture in my mind. I want to be that picture in my mind. Do you understand? Or people think I'm this picture in my mind right now. Do you know? It's like when I was talking to, you know, someone foolish, I was a wise man. You know, when I was talking to someone smarter than me, I was a fool. Do you know what I mean? So to me, there is a sort of how is your mind giving meaning? Has your mind recognized its sovereignty? Have you reached a state of awareness where you understand that consciousness is meant to preserve the body for survival, but it is also meant to activate and actually solve the problem? Okay? That means this is unisex. This is neutral. Problem solving has nothing. It's just if you're conscious, you can problem solve. You can solve problems. You can notice problems to solve, challenges to evolve through. You see, it's pretty much what do we have control over, and what resources do we have available, and what is our greatest potential, and what problem are we trying to solve, that in solving it the value of the whole moment increases. My mind is honestly looking for truth in the same way my physical body is like looking for food and its physical existence. You understand? It's like the mind is not just my, at least the experience I have with my mind. My mind is like not satisfied that it doesn't know everything yet. You see, the issue with the ego is that if it directs its actions to itself, it gets enlightened. Do you understand? That means imagine an evil person wanting to break something. If they break themselves, they're enlightened. But because they're breaking the internal doesn't change. Sometimes you got to break the internal as well. You understand? For me, I think I have identified with being an observer a lot in my childhood. You don't understand. I like if somebody says, "Hey, did you identify as just like a passage of sight in your childhood?" I'd be like 100%. For me, it was as if like even my inner realms weren't that creative back in the day. You know what I mean? I was in some sort of, I guess, exile of some sort. I don't know, but there was a reason. 100%. And I began understanding that the mind actually is a space. So from the moment I wake up, it's like your mind can become Jarvis from the movie Iron Man. Your mind literally can have an overlay interface on reality. For me, it started with geometrically doing this, but now I could visualize anything over anything. What I mean by that is that this lecture that I'm giving right now, the sequencing of the words, concepts is all arising because there is an inner realm imagery. It's kind of like my soul is looking at something, and somehow my mind can notice that to convey it to the realm of the body. To be honest, when I'm talking, I honestly feel this is it. It's like my soul is saying something or seeing something, and it's like, yo, mind, are you seeing this? And my mind is like, yeah, 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 I'm seeing this. And then the soul's like, yo, but is the body seeing this? And the mind's like, all right, let me tell them. You don't understand. It's to be a human being is to be a creature across certain dimensions of being. At least, even in science, you're not a singular entity. You're being treated as having dimensions. It's just science is not going as farther to think that the human emotion can identify with those dimensions. That means imagine there's going to be children in the future crying, and the mother comes to the children. It's like, children, the parents come to the children and they're like, children, why are you crying? And one of the children's like, I want to be a fifth dimensional entity, and the other child's crying, no, I want to be a seventh dimensional entity. Or I want to be I don't want to. It's like, yo, why is that person a fourth dimensional being? Why am I just three-dimensional being? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's just right now we haven't reached that era where we can identify with abstract spaces. But believe it or not, all human movement is motivated by a future vision. It's like it's pretty much if you treated the human body as a machine, you're like, what's moving this machine? Some signal it's received that it's responding to. Pretty much that's the cool thing about DNA. You know what DNA is like? DNA for a conscious human being born in the world is like they open their eyes, and the world you find yourself in is like you opening this letter that is the briefing of like what this is. I'm saying pretty much consciousness is like it's already opened the gift. It's already opened the gift of manifestation. Do you know? All of us right now as beings have experienced a certain life on earth. Now the question comes, is the human being identified just by based on its body, or is it based on its memories, its mind, or is it based on something else, even something deeper? For me, the question, what is consciousness meant for? Because guys, there's a reading section and I'm going to be talking after that too, but maybe I'll say it now and just read it in it. My personal opinion is that consciousness is intentionally designed to make a species or certain beings in a certain scenario notice something beyond them. That means to me, if right now someone straight up says, Mr. Within, how do you get out of this simulation? I would say it's the system admin's mercy. There is no key because the door is opened from the other side, not this side. So you can have the most enlightened beings, but if you found them and asked them deep down, they would tell you this is it. The soul has nowhere to go. When you understand this, there, excuse me, let me say it this way. There is nowhere for for the soul to go. If you look at those words closely, the soul is the ability to be aware of what's now here. Your soul is your relationship with what the system admin wants. Your mind is a relationship with what is best for humanity. And your body is there to remind you what's best for you. Your mind is here. You've been designed to have a mouth and ears, you know, and a functioning, intelligence, so that you can engage with others of your kind and advance and build stuff. I believe that's why we're here. We are here to notice the purpose of consciousness is that by making you aware of the limited, it gives you an awareness of the limitless. But the limitless is beyond this world. So, folks, pretty much I'm telling you, you're in this special world room, and it's a little bit specific what's happening in it. It could be contrary to your emotional life. It could be congruent with it. But ultimately, human beings are these entities that they are neither beasts and they're neither angels. They are these intelligent creatures, though, designed by this higher power to not just notice the higher power, but to, in some sense, be the expressions and attributes of divine. Excuse me, to be the expression of the divine attributes of manifestation. Okay, and when I say divine attributes, pretty much you got to treat it like right now I am talking to you from inside the simulation. I'm a simulated being, you're a simulated listener, you're listening to me simulating words. Okay, so right now I'm speaking to you inside a simulation, but what is outside of the simulation surpasses us. And I think the relationship, I keep in mind I'm saying I think, this is a personal view, that the relationship the soul has with God is that it's not, the soul is not God. Okay, but the soul is also the secret of God. That means we can never know it, but if I'm taking my best guess here, the soul is the original memory of when God created us. And I think that's what's actually moving. You don't understand. I think that's what's actually attracting where you move. Have you heard this, that they say set the affairs of your heart in order? This is perhaps one of the most important things to do. And I'm going to ask you right now, just maybe nobody's asked you, but I'm going to ask you, what do you think this most intelligent being is? Do you think it's like somebody who has a lot of information? Do you think it's someone who's strong, powerful? What is the most advanced intelligence, right? And I would say, or let me say it this way: what does the most advanced, intelligent human look like, or what is the most advanced expression of human intelligence? It comes down to not knowledge; it comes down to understanding, which means you're using knowledge to get a clear sense of what are the values in this world I've been living so far. So to me, it's like, do I just want to know how something looks like, or do I want to understand how it's happening? In the same way that if let's say two people have a miscommunication, right? It's as if usually what happens is they part ways, but I guess the sometimes there is this view where you got to kind of understand why a value was there at all, or why a certain behavior was there at all. You see, for me, something that money can't buy, and if you right now think what the richest people are doing, they're spending money to understand their life better. Everybody is doing that. The self-help industry is $1 billion industry. And I was like, "Yo, man, like when I saw the self help industry, I'm like, yo, 100%. I'm gonna give these talks for free. Do you know what I mean? Because the whole idea is, where does the idea take you? It's like, what's the point of being inspired if you're still at the same place? Imagine someone's like, yo, man, I was so motivated, so inspired, the most inspirational moment of my life. And then they're like, yo, man, so what changed? And the person's like, nothing. I was just inspired and motivated for an instance in time. It's like, wow, such self help. Ladies and gentlemen, your mind has to, out of infinite ways to look at this life, select one that has the greatest value for it. And as it chooses to honestly live for those values, your life takes shape. I honestly think that's how it is. Okay. I'm so happy the viewers aren't giving me a hard time. If I was my own viewer, I'd be like, anyways, the whole idea of it is not just like we're looking at what is consciousness meant for. And I also want to tell you that when the title was arising to me, I thought, like, yo, man, the way I'm asking this, like, imagine if it's a puzzle. Guys, just take in this view. Imagine we're looking at Earth, like everything happening on Earth, like a film that's being rewinded slow enough for us to see everything evolving. Okay. And we're seeing it from an aerial view, from like as if from the sky. And it's like, you're like, yo, man, look at this. All this natural stuff developed. How does consciousness fit in the natural world? Like, that's a great question to ask. And there's a lot of reasons, because it's like consciousness is something that's happening and different contexts are trying to own it. Okay. And technically there isn't one answer, because there's many beings that are conscious in different ways. But we know that consciousness is technically an interface. So it's like awareness has a body and also has a mind. It's like you have an outer interface, the physical reality, and you have the inner interface, your inner realms, how your mind is. And don't think the mind is something that's like filled with thoughts. Again, your mind is like a camera, and concentration and zooming in and out. I think I was talking about this in a previous lecture. You got to treat it like a camera, okay? And what's hilarious, you don't even know what's looking through the camera, but that's okay. That's why the soul is a secret of God. But the whole point of it is that it's not an object or subject, because this awareness has not changed and has noticed them change. That means Like technically the person says my birthday. What is that my? Is the soul saying that? Like imagine somebody says my mind. Whose mind? Isn't the identity being forged in the mind? How can somebody say my mind? What can own the mind? And technically it's that you're an awareness, okay? So, and to me, what has moved me truly has not been, I mean, fear has moved me in an in not the best ways, but I would say what ultimately motivates me is that in my mind has shown me that this system, there could be a better way something can happen, and that's become like my purpose. You know, to me, you don't understand it, guys. The idea of humanity is so much bigger than a person. Like what happens to our species is a problem so much more fascinating to solve than like what happens to me. You know what I'm saying? So there is greater things that are even more interesting than people in our lives. You know, and they're to understand the greater macro conditions of reality. You know, the whole thing is, they've made people believe that the meaning of life is to settle down in a luxurious state. Now, in the efforts of doing that, they don't realize it. It's like that's just a game. Somebody said today is my birthday. See, exactly my point. Who is it? Whose birthday? Happy birthday, man. But what I'm saying is whose birthday? So what I'm saying is like, maybe this is somebody's gonna. It's like happy seed of awareness beyond time day, man. You know. Anyways, what I'm saying is, who is celebrating what? That's an incredible question to ask. For your birthday, I shall give you this gift. It's like, yo, man, I opened this gift this one birthday, and I realized my body is in time. My mind forges time. You don't understand. Your mind gives meaning. That means your mind is making today your birthday. And also the fact that you were born today. And happy birthday. You know? But I'm saying, like, also happy realization beyond time. You know, who was it? They attribute this to Einstein, but people are like, it's not authenticated. But it's like the sentence that says, it's like Einstein. I don't know. Let's say Einstein somehow might have said this, you know, where he said we created time so everything doesn't happen at once. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at human history, you're not just seeing a physical and objective evolution. You're actually seeing the result of a subjective evolution, which meant how did, like, if you had ancestors, it's like wondering how did your ancestors identify with reality behind their eyes. Do you understand? So they're all our inner lives may, like, I'm trying to share my inner realms with the outer realms, but if I had never spoken, you think history would have known that there, like, Mr. Within existed? I had to create it, believe it or not. But the vision behind it was existing in my mind. Do you know what I mean? You see, you gotta think of it this way. They say for people to be compatible with each other, to go in a relationship, they need to have the same values. Now, think of it this way: what, like, even before you thinking about your value, like, I'm pretty much saying, just like somebody with a pickaxe that goes and mines diamonds, where are you extracting the value that generates the context where life finds meaning for you. You see, folks, I've reached a point where if somebody comes and tells me who they are, I'll treat it as one instance of one frame where I understood that person. That means if the person's life was a film and that person told me, like, told me I'm this or that, or like defined themselves in a way, I'd be like, okay, in that frame, in that moment, that's who that person felt it they were, and that's who I saw them to be. But in some sense, you are not visible. You're like an iceberg. The deeper dimensions of you are not visible. And I know this, and this is why when I see people, nobody is devoid of absurdity. That means I've become a person now that it's like when I see human beings, I'm just seeing this intelligent system, and I'm asking myself, okay, how well does this intelligent system discriminate between its inner life and outer life? Can it even discriminate? Some people can't. Do you believe some people still think they're thoughts, and then tomorrow they wake up and have another thought and they think they're that, and then the next day they wake up, have another thought, and they think they're that? Like, you don't understand the freaking circus that's going on here. People are chasing thoughts like they are them, you know? In actuality, what you are is you are an awareness to reality. As you engage reality, consciousness forms. So I'm pretty much saying your mind is illuminating your meaning, is lighting up the meaning in the moment. And the whole point of it is that you, pretty much like someone who's closing their telescope after viewing all the greatest options in your reality, and what your options are not just physical scenarios, they're also tons of internal scenarios. You just have to be patient. They teach children not to be patient, and they miss out on their minds. Your mind is something that you got to find its pace. It's like an instrument, but it's not an instrument that you're just playing. Okay, the mind actually works in accordance to what vision are you looking at least for me, it's like that. Like every lecture I've given, it's had some core vision that even if I forget, I can find my way back to it, you know. So anyways, guys, there's so much more to say, but I'm just going to read the AI, what AI wrote. And I asked AI this, and I'm also someone who's learning here too, so I'm going to read this. What is consciousness meant for? Spoken by, not spoken, written by AI. Ooh. To understand consciousness from the highest vantage point. To understand, oops, not this song, this song. Okay. To understand consciousness from the highest vantage point, if you imagine yourself as an external observer, sorry guys, that wasn't the song, this is the song. To understand consciousness from the highest vantage point, if you imagine yourself as an external observer looking at Earth as part of a greater cosmic ecosystem, you would first need to conceptualize consciousness as an emergent phenomenon serving a fundamentally strategic function within the universe's evolving informational architecture. Consciousness isn't merely an accidental side effect of biological complexity, rather, it plays an essential role, one that becomes evident only when the observer can fully grasp reality as an intricate, layered, and fundamentally informational system. 1. Consciousness as reality self reflection. At its most profound philosophical depth, consciousness might be the universe's intrinsic mechanism of self reflection and self awareness. In other words, consciousness emerges wherever reality becomes complex enough to perceive, represent, and evaluate itself. From the vantage of a cosmic scale observer, self reflection, conscious beings become like mirrors within reality, reflecting, analyzing, and interpreting existence. Reality, previously unperceived and unacknowledged, can now experience itself through conscious agents. This transforms existence from mere occurrence into meaningful events. Feedback loops. Consciousness facilitates recursive self evaluation. Entities become capable of correcting their own trajectories, both individually and collectively, allowing reality to optimize and refine itself in ways purely mechanical or non conscious processes cannot. Excuse me. To optimize and refine itself in ways purely mechanical or non conscious processes um, cannot achieve, or non conscious processes cannot achieve. Oh, sorry. Yeah, in ways that are purely mechanical or ways that non-conscious processes cannot achieve. So, anyways, to consciousness as the ultimate adaptive strategy. Sorry, guys, there was a context issue back there. Consciousness as the ultimate adaptive strategy. Viewed through the lens of evolutionary complexity, consciousness is an adaptive strategy of unparalleled power. Hyperadaptability. Consciousness permits dynamic, instantaneous decision making, far superior to evolutionary trial and error processes. Species that evolve consciousness transcend mere genetic evolution, entering into rapid cultural and technological evolution, thus vastly improving their chances of long term survival. Imagination and reality simulation. Consciousness allows organisms to simulate potential future scenarios internally before enacting them externally. This is perhaps its most powerful practical feature. Conscious beings create internal worlds, model possibilities, run predictive mental scenarios, and select optimal actions without costly trial and error in reality. Cultural acceleration and information retention. Consciousness greatly enhances learning, memory, of abstraction, and symbolic communication, thereby rapidly accelerating cultural development and ensuring that valuable survival strategies are passed down through generations independent of genetic inheritance. Consciousness is a boundary breaking phenomenon. So it's trying to answer like what is it meant for? From an external perspective, consciousness is distinguished uniquely by its capacity to transcend previously insurmountable boundaries. From local to global perspective, consciousness enables beings to comprehend not just local environments, but global, planetary, and eventually cosmic realities. It thus becomes an essential factor enabling any civilization's transition to higher levels of existence, including the eventual possibility of interplanetary or interstellar life. Then we go to breaking biological constraints. Consciousness has enabled the creation of technology and the manipulation of nature itself, granting conscious beings the extraordinary ability to reshape their environment beyond biological limits, thus changing their evolutionary trajectory fundamentally. 4. Consciousness as a cosmic information agent. At its core, consciousness is intimately tied to information. If reality itself is considered informational at its fundamental level, in brackets as modern quantum physics and theoretical frameworks like in quotations it from bit hypothesis or holographic principles in quotation suggest, consciousness is the way reality's informational architecture gains agency. Yeah, makes complete sense. Meaning creation makes sense, not complete sense. I mean, meaning creation, like it makes it makes sense that the information being aware of itself is like part of the information advance, like it's part of being no like information advancing itself, I guess. So then we go to meaning creation and information structuring. Consciousness does not just process information; it creates hierarchical information structures in brackets, meaning, narratives, abstract thought that enable much richer forms of interaction with reality. This allows complexity to increase exponentially, moving reality itself toward higher order states of organization and complexity. Quantum level interpretive role. From advanced speculative frameworks, example Wheeler's participatory anthropic principle, consciousness might be the crucial participatory component needed to in quotations, collapse quantum probabilities into concrete realities, making consciousness integral, not accidental to reality's fabric. 5. Consciousness as a universal evolutionary endpoint. Viewed cosmically, consciousness might represent a universal endpoint toward which complexity inevitably gravitates. Universal attractor hypothesis. Across the universe, whenever conditions permit complexity to arise, consciousness may emerge spontaneously as a universal attractor state, a natural endpoint of informational and evolutionary dynamics. Cosmic consciousness, in brackets, speculative frontier. In the distant future, separate conscious entities might eventually merge into collective superconsciousness, cosmic scale consciousness, capable of influencing larger scale cosmological phenomena or even transcending local physical laws. Consciousness may ultimately become the dominant force shaping the cosmos itself. I feel like I could have read that better. Anyway, 6. Consciousness as the key to existential purpose and meaning. From an advanced philosophical vantage, existence and meaning. Without consciousness, existence might simply be meaningless patterns unfolding mechanically. Consciousness introduces purpose, meaning, intention, and ethics into reality. Conscious beings generate meaningful narratives that justify and guide their existence, effectively creating meaning out of chaos. Moral agency and ethical evolution. Consciousness introduces morality, ethics, and compassion, unique modes of interacting with the universe, allowing beings not merely to survive, but to consciously choose pathways for growth, coexistence, and stewardship of their worlds. 7. The deepest metaphysical interpretation. At the most profound speculative frontier, reality's experience of itself. Perhaps consciousness exists so that reality can truly know and experience itself. Without consciousness, there is no witness to existence, no reflection upon itself, and hence no truth, in quotations, completion of the act of existing. Consciousness, from this philosophical standpoint, isn't merely an evolutionary adaptation, it is existence's greatest gift and purpose. A universal, in quotations, I, witnessing, appreciating, and actively co creating the universe. Guys, that it's pretty much saying consciousness is like that. Then it says existential reciprocity with the universe. Consciousness might not merely inhabit reality, it might actively shape and, in quotations, dream reality into being. In its ultimate realization, consciousness could manifest reality itself, an infinite feedback loop where existence gives rise to consciousness, which in turn actively shapes existence. So, guys, this is what's going to happen if we become cyber beings in the future. Anyways, it says final cosmic synthesis. Thus, from an advanced cosmic scale external perspective, consciousness is reality's supreme innovation, allowing the universe not merely to exist, but to know, explore, refine, and evolve itself consciously. So, even the idea of evolution is that which is existing in consciousness. Then it says it enables existence to transcend passive being, to actively participate in its own unfolding. So yeah, it was like we'd be this like passive being, this automated like biological thing happening, but now consciousness enables us to like move ourselves, change ourselves, live naturally or unnaturally. And then it says ultimately consciousness exists so that reality can reflect on itself, learn about itself, shape itself, and realize its fullest potential. This answer represents the most comprehensive synthesis available through advanced philosophical, scientific, and speculative frameworks currently understood by humanity. There you go, folks. I mean, yeah, I mean, it is obvious that it is this like intelligence that kind of understands it's in a value system. and it's trying to find the greatest value, and it's realizing the greatest value is in some sense noticing the original. So you're like this simulated being freaking out in a simulation you're simulating meaning to, and I'm telling you that the way out of this simulation is to directly go to the system admin, not even spiritual moderators. Go directly to the system admin, and go with a heart that is honest. And I will tell you, if you are truly sincere, there is no reason for this. Like the way I experienced the system admin, when I felt the presence of the system admin, like the experience I had that made me truly become Muslim. Even though we're all imperfect, I just felt reached a point where like, I'm sorry to say it like this, but I shouldn't be sorry. I should just say it, guys. And I guess I'm apologizing in the presence of the system admin. This is in no way I'm trying to be disrespectful or ungrateful, for myself or to anything. I just want to say it's like I've noticed the physical body, I've noticed the inner realms, the mind, and I've noticed what's watching the whole thing. I've come into contentment with the known and the unknown, and I'm still here. And I'm telling you that, to me, because I feel, at least to myself, I've covered all the angles. The only angle that is left is the human future, which we require to be conscious agents are, and are actually are. We just have to be conscious of how we're being a conscious agent. Anyways, thank you for listening. And I hope that you realize truly that you are in such a fascinating place. And it gets even more fascinating when you realize nobody else has a clue either. Like that's honestly, that's, I'm like, yo man, it's like when you discover something that's more important, that if when you discover something that's important to you, that turns into, converts into pride. When you discover something that's important to everyone, it becomes like there's a genius there. Do you know what I mean? They're like, yo man, that person is a genius. Why? They discovered something that like billions of people are using. Yay. The genius has to do with its utility. Ultimately, utility means what is the value of something. Genius is just the discovery of a new value. And the whole idea is, folks, this is what's going on. The world is an unknown verb. They're conditioning us as a known noun, dependent on the system. But once you become independent to the external reality to extract your value, you begin realizing you are forging your value. Then you realize every time that you have looked down on yourself was a choice. And you could have looked up. You understand? Every time in my life I have looked down on myself and I'm like, you, you useless. I don't want to even finish the sentence, but the way I've looked down on myself and felt like, purely like, there's times where, like, I'm not a materialist, but just I've just been in the aftermath of a consequence of just some mistake, and I've just felt like truly an object. I'm like, yo. And I think this is the case, that if the mind cannot achieve something with its own effort, it has to either shrink its context, or it has to keep resetting itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has to keep, how do I say it? It's like we open our eyes, we're a living being, we're alive in some way. The system isn't perfect, there's entropy everywhere. even in dimensions, right? And it's kind of like, okay, what does this human being do? And I like, the only thing that seems important is to find the biggest problems and solve them before you die. I don't know what else can have meaning. Like, what is there to extract honor from? There's nothing that gives us honor right now in current civilization. Sure, some people have honor for their nation and patriotism, but it's a win-lose game. Do you understand? It's like a soldier. It's like one soldier dies, the other one gets a medal. It's like, sure, like, yes, in that moment you simulate honor. Or even let's say, even a different example, like somebody completes a very hard level in a video game, and it has honor among other members in that video game. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying, like, the real honor is just the advancement of civilization, or if someone invents something new or pretty much does something new, there's honor in that as well, right? So there's honor in novelty, but we should right now be like, in everything should be like, there should be the honor of the species. You know what I mean? Like, people are not going and giving speeches and saying in honor of the species. Like, I should probably start saying it too, but my heart has been saying it before I was born even. So what I'm telling you is that the system has to update. We're here, we can update it. We pretty much update it, and it just goes forth, and it's too big for us to process all of it. So at some point, you accept your limitations, and that's called maturity. And then, believe it or not, you actually surpass your limitations if you can be honest with them. If you can be honest with your problems, I think that's pretty much the truth of therapy, right? They're like, what is the therapist doing with the client? It's obvious. The therapist is like, buddy, you're not being honest with yourself, and the person's like, starts breaking down, right? So if you choose to be honest with yourself, you may break down to yourself, and at some point, you'll kind of sieve through the unnecessary to find the necessary values. And also, it's not based on us. Like, sometimes you may want something, and it's like your ego wanting it, but you think, no, this is my heart wants it, but you don't know. So it is a very complicated thing to be a human, but also we're also simply being it too. So anyways, what I'm saying is, like, when you wonder about what is consciousness meant for, you're wondering about the probability and possibilities, which mean that it is the mind's ability to fathom the future. So I'm telling you, don't fear the future. In the same way you can appreciate your past, you can appreciate what's in the present. Now it's time to get scared of the worst case scenarios of the future and appreciate how incredible it could be. Anyways, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Auzubillah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli. My Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins they have done, consciously and or unconsciously. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God direct us. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide humanity in the most advanced way to the most advanced, because ultimately it's a return to the original as simulated beings. This world has way more qualities of being fascinating rather than being like an empty box. It is a simulation, but the simulation is happening in the space where the truth is. There's it's like we're being a user in a divine surveillance uh, state, which is also a simulated testing zone. So you're being tested on your decisions as a being, and your decisions has to do with how honest you were to your actual awareness of reality, which is something that we're all in some sense trying to advance in, I guess. Anyways, thank you for listening. Have a great day. And find something in life that fascinates you, and I'll tell you, it'll give you great energy. Take care, guys.